Today is September 8th, 2010. I'm visiting with Stephen Cooper on the Oklahoma State University campus in Stillwater, Oklahoma. This interview is for the O State Storage Project of the Oklahoma Oral History Research Program. And Stephen, I know this is early in the semester and you're really busy this year. I appreciate you taking time to come by and visit with us.
No problem.
Okay. Stephen, you've served as faculty advisor to Oklahoma State University Spirit Writer in the past for several years, and I want to visit with you particularly about your participation in that. But first, could we step back and talk a little bit about your early life, where you grew up, your family? Can you share a little bit of that information with us?
Yeah, I grew up on a livestock farm in West Texas, right north of Lubbock. We raised a lot of hogs and sheep and horses, and was very active in 4-H. We sold our farm about in the mid-'80s, and my dad went to work for a cotton company, Delta and Pine, and then ended up retiring with them about 4 years ago. My mom was a school teacher there, and was also ended up retiring out as superintendent of our public school there. Me and my brother grew up mostly rodeoing. We horse showed quite a bit as youth, and then got over into the rodeo aspect. We both went to Texas Tech University in the animal science program, and then I went on to do a master's and PhD in animal science, and that's how I landed the job here. I actually came here in '95 to do a PhD with Don Topliff, who at that time was the supervisor for the Spirit Writer program, and then I helped him as a graduate student for about 3 years.
Let me back up and ask you, Stephen, where you grew up, did you go to Lubbock High School, or was there a smaller school north of Lubbock you went to school?
Yeah, a little bitty town called New Deal, Texas.
New Deal?
New Deal, Texas.
NEWDEAL?
Yeah, it used to be called Monroe, and then when they had the New Deal,
FDR's New Deal?
They changed the name of it. Yeah, it's just a little bitty 1A school there. Yeah, it's the first town you come to right north of Lubbock.
Did you participate in school activities, sports? So you mentioned 4-H, any other activities?
Yeah, of course, in that small school, everybody has to do everything, or you don't have a team. All the guys got to play football, or otherwise you don't have another
That's right.
team. But yeah, I was on the football team and on the track team there in school, and then we were, like I said, heavily involved in 4-H with livestock. Did a lot of the major shows around Texas. Like I said, that was our business for a long time, was raising both commercial market animals as well as purebred seed stock animals, and then we raised and showed and sold lots of show animals.
So you were also rodeo, and you mentioned earlier, did you do junior rodeos, high school rodeos?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. My brother and I grew up mostly roping, and then later on my brother got into bulldogging. He was a professional bulldogger for a while. Yeah.
Wow.
So, yeah, it kind of runs in the family. We've had some uncles that were professional ropers and bulldoggers there in Texas, and so they kind of got us started, and got a lot of horses from them.
So you've been involved, beginning early in your life, you've been involved with horses just about your whole life, I guess.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
So you rode at Texas Tech, majored in animal science?
Yes, sir.
How did you enjoy your experience there at Tech?
Yeah. Yeah, I was like the majority of our freshmen here. I thought I was going to go to vet school, starting out, and then kind of switched directions and got more over into the production side, and then kind of got interested in going on to graduate school, and then decided I want.
You earned your master's at University of Illinois.
Yes, sir.
I was trying to think what time when Stephen was John Campbell Dean of the College of Agriculture at that time.
Here or
at Illinois. He was dean of the College of Illinois and then was president of Oklahoma State University. I just wondered if you overlapped with him there in Illinois.
No, I think I was there after
After
he had left. Yeah, I was there in the early 90s. And when I came here, he was, well, I think he was already retired by the time I came here in 95.
Okay. So did you, again, your graduate studies were in animal science?
Yeah, specifically in equine nutrition.
Okay.
Yeah, I went up there to work on a master's and also coach the horse judging team.
Now, is there a story about how you got back to Oklahoma State, how you enrolled at OSU? What was the tie there?
Yeah, it's actually, it's there's a saying, it's not what you know, but who you know. I had gotten to know Dr. Topliff through the judging program. When I was actually judging at Texas Tech, we used to travel with other schools, and Oklahoma State was one of them, and so I'd gotten to know Dr. Topliff through that.
And what's your last name, Doctor?
Don Topliff.
Can you spell that for me?
Topliff.
Okay, Topliff. Thank you.
He was here from 82 through about 98.
Okay.
And he was the head of the horse program here during those years. And so when I was getting done with my master's at the University of Illinois, I just picked up the phone and called him one day, and I decided I wanted to go on and do a PhD because I really wanted to stay in teaching. I wanted to stay in academia. I knew I needed to get a PhD to do that, and OSU had one of the greatest reputations of having a really strong horse program of anybody in the country. So luckily he had a position open, and I came here in January '95 and started working with him again in equine nutrition. And then, like I said, because he was director of the Spirit Rider program, then I started helping him with that. That was how I initially got started working with the program.
Can you talk a little bit about we'll come back to Spirit Rider program, just sort of finish that chapter of your life here, academically. Can you talk a little bit about your career at Oklahoma State? So you finished your PhD here, and then I understand did you go straight into a teaching position at OSU then from your doctoral program?
Yes, sir. It just, timing kind of worked out pretty well. Dr. Topliff pulled me in his office one day and said, you kind of need to think about getting done because I'm applying for this position at West Texas. It was a department head's position. And he said, you would be a viable candidate for my job. And so I got done, and he left here in the fall of '98, and then they kept me on in a teaching position in the interim and that fall, and then offered me the job in January '99.
So you finished your doctoral program in '98?
'98, yes, sir. Okay. Yeah, it was right about the time he left.
I'll give you a little chance to brag, Stephen, but you must have been pretty impressive as a student, because that's a little unusual to be to move from student position into a tenured faculty track position.
Yeah, other people have said that, and to stay here, to stay at the same place. I was just really fortunate to get to stay here, especially to do what I do. I've had other opportunities to go to industry, to go to other schools and do this same job, but there's no better place in the country to do what I do.
That's great.
Yeah.
Well, I'd like to visit a little bit about the history of OSU Spirit Rider program. Eddie Finley, if I understand, was helped initiate the Spirit Rider program.
Yes, sir.
And he was a Texas Tech graduate. And my question: Did you know Eddie? Did you talk to him? Did you ever?
No. When I came here as a graduate student, he was already retired from. I believe he worked in ag education. And so I never really had any association with him, and it was the reason, the way I understand it, when it switched over from Dr. Finley to Dr. Topliff was, when Eddie decided to retire from the university, and at that time obviously had been serving as a faculty advisor. The interesting history about all of this is that because he was the advisor of the rodeo club, that's how the program originally got started. And he patterned this Spirit Rider program after the one at Texas Tech, which when I was at Tech, my roommate was the Spirit Rider. Well, they call it the Masked Rider.
The Masked Rider. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but you know, the black horse, the student rider, you know, he just followed suit kind of with what they were doing, and kind of renamed the program a little bit. So I already had some history with it before I came here, because we had a similar type program.
So your roommate was the Masked Rider at Tech.
Right.
So you did have pretty good knowledge of it, didn't you?
Right. Yeah, and I worked at the horse farm at Texas Tech where we took care of the horse. And then the year he was Spirit Rider, I traveled with him because we made, they made a lot of appearances at rodeos and parades and schools, and you know, just going out into the public and making appearances besides going to the home football game.
Stephen, how are the programs? I mean, how are the two programs similar? And then we'll kind of talk about how they're maybe dissimilar. But in what ways? Because, like you said, both got the black horse, they got the student rider. But in terms of the outfit, kind of what they portray, how are they similar? Talking about they being the Masked Rider program at Tech and Spirit Rider program at Oklahoma State.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you know, they're very similar on the outward appearance. I mean, obviously, the uniforms that we use, you know, for the students were a little different. Of course, they've got the Masked Rider there, who actually, it's more of a Zorro type deal there. They've got wear the cape and, you know, and the black mask. And so it was supposed to be there almost kind of a secret of who was the rider. And the way they did the interviews and stuff, you know, it was all pretty secretive. And here, you know, I think we had a much more open policy. We had open tryouts. You know, anybody could apply, and we would sort through them. They had to go through an interview. They had to go through a horsemanship part where we actually put them on the horse and let them carry a flag, and then they had to fill out an application with their history, their background, their experience, and stuff like that.
What was the difference? The outfits, they kind of, like you said, they portrayed different things a little bit. I mean, the OSU Spirit Rider is more of a cowboy, if you will.
Here, I think, yeah, ours is more of a traditional, you know, cowboy attire. You know, the kids wear, and it's changed throughout the years. Some years we had, you know, the white starch shirts with, you know, either the black or orange lettering. And then when I took over the program, I moved to the orange shirts with black lettering and black jeans, black hat, black boots. And now I believe they've gone to black shirts with the orange lettering, with the same, you know, the black hats, the black starch jeans. So yeah, we didn't really make it a costume. That is one difference. Like if you look at Tech's program, you know, the rider, it's more of a costume that they're wearing versus just kind of a traditional cowboy attire like what we do. And of course, being OSU Cowboys, you know, that's what we wanted to better portray were the Cowboys.
Did Tech ever have any issues with us? Kind of not, I'll say, borrowing their concept.
Well, I mean, there's obviously other schools that are using horses and riders. I mean, if you look at Florida State, you know, with the Seminole Indian and USC with the Spartan and stuff. So the idea of using a horse and a rider combination was not something that Tech came up with on their own. It was just, I think maybe the only similarity there is the fact that we both use the same kind of horse. You know, it's always been a black quarter horse. But you know, here, if you look at what we do, we actually run the horse on the field where, you know, like Tech, they have a track around their field where the horse runs. Our rider carries a flag, whereas like the masked rider doesn't carry a flag. And like I said, theirs is more of a costume outfit versus ours is more of a traditional cowboy outfit. So I guess the only thing we really, would be exactly identical would be we're using the same type of horse in the program.
But Eddie Finley did definitely get his at least ideas about Spirit Rider from his experience at Texas Tech with the Masked Rider.
Well, I never did visit with him about any of that. Like I said, he was already retired and gone by the time I got here. Now his wife is still here in town, and so it might be worth a phone call to her to just maybe see if she recollects exactly how all of that transpired. I do know the way the Spirit Riders were initially chosen was quite a bit different than what we did in later years, like when I was involved with it. For example, John Bell, Eddie was just taking a student out of the rodeo club and basically assigning them as the Spirit Rider. And for example, in John Bell's case, who was the first Spirit Rider, he was using his own horse. And he took his dog to the game.
Yeah.
He had I think it was a blue heeler. And the dog would run out there on the field with him, after the touchdowns. And so basically it was just John loading up his old rope horse and his dog, and they'd go down there to the field and, do a little run. And then it started evolving after that. And then we started bringing on kids to what we call the ground crew. And then we started having, formalized tryouts. And then we started having, a more formal, structured type outfits and attire that the kids wore. And so it got a little more structured. And then, instead of just restricting it to one club, we opened it up, to other students typically within ag, animal science, the kids with the horse backgrounds and stuff.
Why did Eddie Finley and others at that time feel that there's a need for a Spirit Rider? Do you know, did you ever have that conversation with your advisor?
No, I assume it was just, we obviously had Pistol Pete, and I assume he looked around at what, some of the other schools were doing with their additional mascots, because, like I said, some of those other schools I mentioned, have the student rider with a horse, and then they also had more of the traditional type mascot like our Pistol Pete or whatever. So I assume he was just wanting to, help bring more, to the spirit side of things. And being the Cowboys, the OSU Cowboys, it just all kind of tied together. It was a natural fit for OSU to incorporate an additional mascot, even though Bullet is not the official mascot of OSU.
Here Comes Bullet's pretty well known, right?
Yeah, what's that?
Well, you talking about John Bill. Do you remember the first year that actually Spirit Rider, rode out on the field?
I would have to go back and look. It's gonna be around. It's gonna be around somewhere around 81 or so. 81. I would have to go back and look. It's gonna be early 80s. There, 81, maybe 82, and then I think Dr. Topliff, he probably took over somewhere in the mid to late 80s is when it kind of switched over.
Do you remember some of those early Spirit Riders after Bill? Do you know?
I don't. After John, and I've met John a few times down here at Remington Park when we've taken tours down there. Now the gap in between John and when I came here in '95. I mean, I would probably recognize some of those names. I'd have to go back and look and see who all was in there.
So Dr. Toffler was in charge of the program from about the mid-80s or so to mid-90s or late 90s.
Late 90s, yes, sir. 98, 97, 98 would have been his last year.
So you, per our conversation earlier, Stephen, you'd actually, because you worked with Dr. Toffler, you worked with the program helping him
Right.
when you came here in 95. Then when did you officially take over as faculty advisor?
99.
99.
Yeah,
Okay.
99. Yes, sir.
Can you talk about some of the people you worked with? See, or I'm trying to kind of give my sequence from 95 to when did you then step down as faculty advisor?
Well, it would have been, I don't know if Jennifer, Ty and Jennifer told you what year they started, but it would have been that year. So
Okay.
99, it would have been about 04, 05. I think Ty and Jennifer have been in charge of it about 4 or 5.
So you worked with it for about 5 years yourself, 5 or 6 years.
Yeah, counting, when I came here
Okay.
as a graduate student, about 10 years total.
And who were some of the students that you worked with, Stephen?
Well, going back to kind of the 03, 04 era, Mary Ruth Cohenauer was one. My last year was Ty Peverly. He was a spirit rider last year. I was in charge of it. Jason Wright was another one. I'm gonna have to go back in the Rolodex. I'd have to go back and look at the other ones. We've had so many of them.
Well,
Ty and Jennifer were both
Okay.
on the spirit. We were both spirit riders while I was helping with that program.
So maybe you being a horseman, maybe I'll ask you about the horses here. What do you remember about the horses that you worked with? We had one for several years and one that died after a couple of years, and then maybe the current one. Could you kind of share some information about Bullet?
Yeah. The original Bullet, when it first started, and like John and maybe the next 2 or 3 years, those people were just kind of using their own horses. Yeah, when we got the original Bullet, I believe was about 85. And that horse was called Star Spar's Money. And we used him for 15 years.
Wow.
And then we had to retire him. He just started getting old. He was just getting too old to take all the riding. And that's kind of an unusual surface to have to kind of ride a horse on. And, when we first started that, we were riding on the old AstroTurf and the old stadium there. So, but yeah, we retired him. And then we found another black horse. We used him for the last 2 years that I did it. And then when Ty and Jennifer took over, then we moved that horse over to their program. And they were going to start using him the first year that they were in charge of the program. And that horse just experienced a really bad episode of colic, which is not that uncommon in horses. But yeah, that horse colicked and unfortunately died, and then so they went out and found the horse that they're currently using now.
Well, back to kind of your comment about riding out on the field, did you have special shoes made for Bullet, for the artificial turf?
No, a lot of people ask, do we use rubber shoes? Does he go barefoot? We just used regular, what we refer to as keg shoes. Prior to them putting this new type of AstroTurf down, we had the old AstroTurf. It got to the point that stuff was so basically dry rotted that the horse actually, when he would dig in, was actually puncturing through the turf. And so Monday morning when we had our meetings, they would tell us how they had to go out there and sew the turf up from where the horse was taking off and running around the field, but that turf was getting so old and everything. No, we didn't use any special shoes, but it does take a special kind of horse to be able to run out there on that artificial turf and dodging refs and players and cheerleaders and everything. and what you're asking that horse to do is a little unusual.
It's all the noise, I imagine, all the crowd.
Yeah, what's hard is you can ride that horse all you want, but you can't simulate that environment until you're in it.
Mm-hmm.
And so, yeah, it takes a few games to kind of get him acclimated to what is now 60+ thousand people, and then all the people down there on the field, which you can't control. Yeah.
What? Okay, can you talk a little bit about your role in those 4 or 5 years that you were working as advisor? What were your responsibilities and duties?
Well, first of all, we housed the horse out here at the Animal Science Horse Farm, so we cared for him year round. When we had, after selecting the student rider and what we referred to as the ground crew, which were the students that helped take care of the horse and helped with the day-to-day field operations. We were directly involved in the selection of the rider, the management of the program. Most of the year it was managing the horse, but then, we would have to leave about 3 hours before every home game. To get down there. We used to do the walk, bring the team down, and then we would bring the band down, and we'd do the run through the band, and then during halftime we'd have the horse up top and we'd sign autographs for the kids, and then besides the home games, that horse also made a lot of appearances, and so we'd have to get the kids and take the horse to like I said, parades and schools and alumni functions and different things. So during the football season and even a little bit during the summer when there were some of those special appearances, it was quite a bit of management.
Get it back up just a minute and ask you again. Could you kind of go through some detail, the tryout and the application process for a spirit rider?
Mm-hmm. We would put out applications typically mid-spring semester. Usually have tryouts about the middle to end of April. So there was an application they had to fill out, which a lot of it was relative to background and experience with horses, where they were at in school, what they were doing. So we would sort through all the applications. Then we would have each student go through an interview process with a committee, which I chaired. And then we would have the horsemanship part, and the kids would, ride the horse, and we would evaluate them, score them on riding ability.
Just different techniques you ask them to do.
Right, basically what they would have to do, down here on the field on that horse, which is kind of like a grand entry type, procedure that we're asked to do down there with the rider, having to carry a flag and run basically full speed around the field or down through the band. And then from that, we would rank all the students that applied and then went through the interview and everything. And then, the top student was a spirit rider, and then we typically would take 3 to 4 of the next top ranked students and put them on the ground crew, which they would help care for the horse, they would help at the game, they would help, in traffic control around the horse. They would help get the horse on and off the field, make sure his feet are cleaned out before he runs on the field, make sure the tack was clean, make sure the horse was clean.
Did you have any one of that ground crew designated as an alternate spirit rider? Like Pistol Pete, we actually have 2 now. You used to have Pistol Pete and alternate, and now they've got 2. But is there someone designated as a number 2 spirit rider?
Well, we would have had a number 2 ranked student. I don't know that we ever formally told them that they were alternate spirit rider, but there were definitely kids on that crew that could get on the horse and ride him if we ever got in that situation. Don't know that we ever got put in that situation where we had to, needed somebody else to ride the horse.
Stephen, about the horse, a lot of people understand you kind of got the rider and the horse have to bond, particularly in an environment that you've got bullet in a game day situation, as you alluded to earlier. How did the student rider bond with the bullet?
Well, the horse knew his job,
Mm-hmm.
so that was easy. I mean, you know,
training the student than it was the horse.
yeah, it was more of training the student of what to do and what not to do when you're on that horse,
Mm-hmm.
and what to be ready for when you're on the horse, and training the kids on the ground crew of, okay, here's what you have to do to make sure that this horse and this rider stays safe. And the hard part is, it's all those things outside of our deal that we can't control. You know, I can get the horse where he needs to be, we can get the students where they need to be, and then we put them out there in that environment, and then there's all these things that are out of your control.
Mm-hmm.
And so, you know, there were a lot of times where just the riders, thank goodness we had the right person on there, because they had to make some split-second decisions. Like the last year I was doing it, you know, Ty Beverly, he's making a run around on the field, and he's coming back up the home side, and it was a OU game, and it was the ESPN game of the week, and so on one of these runs, you know, one of the Spirit team decided they needed to run out on the field. Well, they ran out on the field right where this horse is coming back to the tunnel there, and I mean, this rider had to basically just take this horse and veer him off to keep from, you know, wiping out about a half a dozen of our Palm squad.
That would not have been too good on national TV.
No, well, and then there's other times. The year that Ty Cunningham was a Spirit rider, they dropped 2 parachuters out of the sky, and they came down, and as Ty ran through the band and was bringing the horse back up the student section back towards the tunnel, this parachuter comes down over the north side of the stadium and goes right over the top of the horse.
Oh my God.
And crash lands on the field, right behind the horse.
What did Bullet do?
Nothing.
Wow.
Nothing. He was
Great horse.
that was the old. He was still riding the original Bullet there. And yeah, that old horse is, oh my gosh, he's worth his weight in gold for all the stuff that he had to go through.
I understand they had a retirement party for that Bullet.
Yeah, we did a retirement deal during halftime. The first year that we started with that new horse, we brought Bullet out and they did a little retirement deal for him. Yeah,
That's great.
So, yeah, and then we just.
I want to ask you a little bit about the Spirit. You alluded to it earlier with the Spirit Rider apparel and then the attack from the horse, but what kind of the uniform you know had changed over the years, but can you kind of go over that again about what's the uniform look like? What are they doing? They got chaps, they used to have a vest, I guess they don't anymore, they got the shirt, cap. What's the apparel there?
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah, when we were doing it, you know, we've always had the tradition of the black felt hats. Like I said, the shirt color has varied, you know, throughout the years. When I was a graduate student here, we had white shirts with orange vests. And then when I took over in '99, we switched them to orange shirts and black vests. And now I believe they're with black shirts. But it's always a long sleeve, you know, Western type shirt. Typically, you know, black Wranglers and black boots. That's generally for everybody. And then in addition, the Spirit Rider does wear the black chaps with the OSU brand on it, and then they carry the OSU flag. Now the 1 year during 9/11, Dan Baumhoff was the Spirit Rider that year, and we had him carry the American flag the whole football season that year because of 9/11.
Yeah, Baumhoff, B-O-M-H-A, what?
I believe it's Bomhoff. I'll have his name back in the office. And another interesting thing about the year that he was a Spirit Rider, he nominated that horse. AQHA and MD Barnes sponsor a program whereby they recognize horses that serve the public. It's called the Silver Spur Award, And Bullet was one of the top 3 finalists that year, and he was recognized in November of that year down at the AQHA World Show. He didn't win it, but he was a runner-up and to the Silver Spur, and so he received quite a bit of recognition.
That's great.
From that for, you know, just what all he does for the public and for OSU.
So, are there some companies that provide the apparel for Spirit Rider? I mean, there's some companies that do that for free, or?
Well, when I was in charge of it, Territory was providing our shirts for us. And then the athletic program was helping the kids, like with the vests. And the jeans, I believe, I know we were getting them from Territory. I can't remember if they were donating them or if the kids were just buying their own jeans. And helping them, you know, if they didn't have a black hat, a black felt hat, because those hats are pretty expensive. I don't know what they're doing currently, if the athletic program is purchasing all of that for them or not.
And you got the belt buckle also. I guess you got the chaps and the belt buckle, and so the athletic department provides that to them.
I don't know about that. They weren't when I was doing it.
Okay.
They were, I mean, we were, through Animal Science, you know, we were taking care of the horse and providing all of that care. And like I said, Territory was helping a little bit on the sponsorships. I know they sponsored the shirts that we were wearing.
What about the tack for Bullet?
Well, the saddle that we used well, I guess the whole time I was doing it, was custom made by Trophy Tack over here in Bixby. That saddle was donated to the program several years ago. Not sure what saddle they're using currently. But yeah, there was a custom made bridle and saddle that Jerry Hall, who is deceased now, but he custom made that for Bullet and donated all that to the program.
Was it what color was the saddle? Was it black or?
No, it was a dark brown.
Dark brown.
Saddle, all custom tooled, custom silver with the OSU brand and everything on it. Yeah.
Then the bridle didn't have something on it as well, OSU identifier or something. Is that
Oh,
recall?
yeah, I had custom silver on it, and then had a custom made breast collar with OSU.
That's what I was thinking of, the breast collar.
Yes, sir.
Pretty classy. And then the blanket was also, I think, had OSU brand on it or something, didn't it?
Well, the one, yeah, we were just using an OSU orange blanket. The one we used didn't have the brand on it. Yeah, just the saddle.
Even you were talking earlier about kind of special qualities that a horse has to have to operate in that environment.
Mm-hmm.
What qualities were you looking for in a horse when you thought about a substitute or another Bullet?
Well, the hard thing is, because we started that tradition of having a black horse, going out and finding a true black horse is harder than you think. Then on top of that, finding one that is what we would call bomb-proof is even harder. I mean, a horse that you can throw a kid on that doesn't own this horse, and it's probably their first time to ride this horse, and then put them out there and onto that field in front of 60,000 screaming fans. It takes a special kind of horse. You can't just run out and find the horse that has all of those qualities. And when you do, you better hang on to him. We were lucky that we got 15 years out of that original horse. And like I said, just because of his age, we finally had to retire him. But yeah, you're looking for that really pretty black horse, quarter horse, that has the right mind and that can handle that kind of pressure, because it's a lot different than what a lot of these horses experience.
What kind of moving to maybe a game day and kind of think of a typical game day? When does Bullet arrive in Stillwater? Of course, now they bring him over from south of Sand Springs on the Cunningham's farm. You'd bring it from the.
Mm-hmm.
But how soon do you try to, or do you actually come in on a Friday night, or and start the routine then, or do you start on game day on Saturday?
Well, when I was doing it, we would, first of all, we would have a practice about once a week. And down here, when we had the old stadium and before, you could still access the stadium, we'd actually take the horse down and practice with the band. One time during the week, definitely until we got the horse and the kid going in the right direction, and they all felt comfortable with that. We probably didn't do that the whole semester, but we for sure did it prior to the first 2 or 3 games every year. And but now I think it would probably be very difficult to do that with the new stadium and everything. But yeah, so we would go down there and we would actually practice on the field. We would practice the runarounds. We would practice running through the band. We'd talk to the kids about, okay, when this happens or this happens or this happens, here's what you need to do. Here's how you need to react. Here's how you need to interact with the public. Here's how you need to interact or not interact with the public. Because there was, a lot of times we got into some tough situations where, crowd control was an issue, too many people trying to get around the horse, like doing those walk downs, especially when, for example, it was ESPN game day and you're talking thousands of people jammed in one spot, and here we are with this horse in there. And every now and then, would have to take control of certain situations where people were, doing something they weren't supposed to around the horse, or some fan would throw something out of the stands, or we'd have to go physically move somebody out of the way as the horse was running Mach 9 out of the tunnel, and so they didn't get plowed.
See, when you actually did rehearsal, did you rehearse with the Spirit Squad, the band, Palm Squad? When you're talking about coming down and doing the rehearsal, did you do a rehearsal with all of the groups?
I would say it was most everybody. I don't remember the Palms and the cheerleading squad being there, but it was all the bands and the flag corps were there, and so we would simulate a game day type situation to where the horse would follow them down. Well, and of course, what they're doing now is a little different because of the setup. This in the old stadium, we had the tunnel in the center of the stadium, and the horse would stand down there, and then he would come out of that tunnel and to run down through the band or run around the field. But yeah, we would try to simulate everything we could up to a point. The only thing we didn't have was 40 or 50,000 people up in the stands screaming and yelling. And then a bunch of people doing stuff down there on the field that that you didn't really foresee. Like when they going to release 10,000 balloons over the top of the horse, or they're going to shoot fireworks off of the jumbotron, and the horse is standing underneath the jumbotron. And of course, it's all changed nowadays. But yeah, we had a lot of experiences. A lot of stuff that some of it we knew was going to happen, and we just had to deal with it, and then other things that just popped up.
Stephen Spade, do you have some favorite memories? I mean, maybe fun, joyful, scary. I mean,
He was all scary.
There's got to be some special time. Share some special things you remember from your years.
Yeah, I mean, it was a lot of fun. Getting to watch those kids. Especially when when the rider gets to get out on the field, and you kind of get caught up in all of that atmosphere when the team's doing good and the horse is getting to run a lot, and the kids are really getting involved in the game, and again, trying to keep all of this controlled was the advisor's job. And so we were always probably more watching what was going on with the kids and the horse than we were involved in the game. But yeah, I mean, it was, the years that we did it was it was fun, and it was good to get to work with those kids down there on that field, and to help use it as an opportunity to help teach those kids, how to work with each other and how to work with the public, because they got exposed to so many things down there that they won't get out of class or any other type of activity. So it was a good learning experience. It was a lot of fun watching them, go through that and have to kind of, work their way through some things, or something would happen and they would look at us like, oh my gosh, what do I do? There's a mascot right there where we need to run the horse. What do we do? We'll go move the mascot so he doesn't get killed. Can I do that? Yeah, you better.
Well, Stephen, speaking of that, kind of makes me think of the next question. When a student was selected for Spirit Rider, did you talk to him about their obligations and their expectations you had of their behavior in public as Spirit Rider, or even if any time that they were out in the public, people knowing that they were the Spirit Rider?
Yes, sir. Yeah, that was part of the interview process. We would fire questions at them, probably questions that they didn't think. Most of our questions were not really about their horse background or what you would do with the horse. We wanted to know, what are you going to do when you're confronted with certain types of situations, or somebody from the public comes up and says, I heard such and such about the horse or about the program. What do you say? And so it was a good learning experience for them, because they'd never really been put in those types of situations. Or what would you do if somebody did this or said this, or so yeah, it really made them stop and think about the fact that they were not there as a spectator. They were not there as a fan. They were there as a representative of OSU and our program and the Spirit Rider program and the department, and so I think it gave them a much better perspective and appreciation for what they were doing.
Sort of higher expectation of their conduct in public as a Spirit Rider then.
Right. Yeah, you're not afforded the opportunity to get to act like the crazy fan that's sitting right here above you, yelling at the ref or the players, or saying stuff or doing stuff that didn't need to be happening. So yeah, you really had to watch. And of course, a lot of these games are televised, and I was watching a clip from highlights from the game the other night, and they, a lot of times they will show the rider on the horse, and a lot of times there were a lot of photographers down there taking pictures of the rider and the horse, and then our own local people taking video of the horse, interviewing the kids, and somebody walks up and sticks a microphone in your face and starts asking you questions. We had to prepare those kids prior to that. To be thinking about, okay, what do I need to say? What can I say? What shouldn't I say?
So you anticipated that most of the kids that tried out had a good horsemanship background. Is these other qualities you're looking for in addition to that as well?
Yes, sir.
And about how many people would try out generally in a year?
We were getting, on average, probably 12 to 15 students, applying and trying out.
I kind of talking to Jennifer and Ty Cunningham, I kind of picked up on the fact that at least in recent years, Spirit Rider's usually been 1 year, kind of one and done. Is that by intent, or is that the expectation that you'll be there 1 year? I mean, did someone want to try? Were they allowed to try out again for a second year, or is it just sort of understood that if you're a Spirit Rider, it's going to be a 1 year gig?
Yeah, it was pretty much understood, that once you were a Spirit Rider, then, we're going to move on. And we wanted to give more kids the opportunity to do that. And, it was usually an upperclassman anyway. And it may have been somebody that served on the ground crew previously, or it may be somebody that just applied. That was their first time, to apply.
A lot of times, did your Spirit Rider come out of the crew?
Sometimes yes, and sometimes no. It just kind of depended on the year. We didn't have a hard and fast rule that you had to be on the ground crew first. Obviously, to have experience with the team prior to being Spirit Rider, yeah, you've got a leg up. But if we had somebody that was just obviously the best person and the best rider and the best fit, we would put them on the horse even though they hadn't been on the ground crew. So, I mean, sometimes, yeah, they had been previously, sometimes no. We just tried to get the best kid on there every year.
Stephen, you alluded to earlier about other appearances that Spirit Rider and Bullet would make. Can you talk about some of the different kinds of appearances and maybe how many typically in a year outside of athletic events that the Spirit Rider would do?
Yeah, I don't know on number. I mean, it might have been, 5 to 10. Special Olympics was always a big one that we did, here on campus. Take the horse down to the field and make appearances there. Sometimes you get requests from different alumni associations around the state, like a local alumni club, chapter would be having a function, or somebody's having a big parade. We would do the Christmas parade here, maybe the 4th of July parade. Sometimes at schools, we would take the horse. And so sometimes the athletic department had functions, that they would like for the horse and the rider to make an appearance at.
And I was talking to Ty, Jennifer, I said, how does it feel to be second fiddle to a horse? It seemed like Bullet's usually more popular than the Spirit Rider.
Oh, yeah.
You see kids just sort of mob that horse when it's there. They love, of course, I mean, they love the kids too, the college, the Spirit Riders and talking to them, but they really love Bullet.
Right. That, I would say that, you asked me what's the difference between our program and Texas Tech. That's probably the biggest difference. Here, the focus is on the horse. It's on Bullet. They could care less who the rider is. Half the time probably don't even know who the rider is. And at Tech, it's about the master rider. They don't even probably know, I don't know the horse. I mean, they have a name that they kind of stay with, I think, but it was, the emphasis was more on, it was on the master rider, not on the horse. And so, yeah, it's completely opposite here. Everybody knows who Bullet is.
Why do you think kids love Bullet so much?
Well, if you look in our department, the biggest majority of the kids coming into animal science, their primary interest is in horse. Now, does that mean that they are all have a strong, extensive horse background? No. People like horses. And then anytime you put one out here in that type of fan situation, yeah, it's just a natural attraction for people in general. And then obviously here, like I said earlier, it's just a natural fit for this program.
Stephen, I understand also that the Bullet and Spirit Rider show up at the Alumni Center now, every home game, and the kids take photos with Bullet and get to pet him and be around him, and I guess that's a pretty special deal for them now.
Right, yeah, that was probably one of the biggest reasons the kids came to the games. I don't know how much they watched the game, but they knew where the horse was going to be, and they knew that the Spirit Rider would have a picture of Bullet and that they would sign for them or get their picture made with them, and they'd have their little Bullet dolls, and they would name their pets after Bullet, and it's quite a phenomenon.
Do you remember when we first named the horse? There's a contest, I think, that students when named the horse Bullet. Do you remember when they first did that, started calling the horse Bullet? It's
when they got the original. It's when they started with the original horse, and I believe it was 85. Okay. Was the first year that that original Bullet was used, and that's when they had the naming contest here on campus.
How recognizable is the phrase, "Here comes Bullet"?
Yeah.
Is there any OOHRP fan that doesn't know that phrase?
Oh, I seriously doubt it, unless they're living under a rock. Yeah, I mean, it's, my son was writing a report for school last night, And one year when, well, it was when Les Miles was here, and we went to the Cotton Bowl. And I can't remember off the top of my head what year that was. After we got back from that game, the head of football operations at that time, Matt Butler, he presented us with an orange football, and on there it had the Cotton Bowl and the teams and the scores, and then underneath it he had them put "Here Comes Bullet" on there, and he presented it to the Spirit Rider program that year. So, yeah.
Where's that football now? Do you know?
It's in my son's room. And so anyway, he was writing about this football in his school report last night, and you know, he's pretty proud to have that football that Matt gave us. Yeah, I mean, like I said, the kids they love the horse, and of course these kids love horses in general, but you know, that one's got special.
I wanted to back up, Steve, and ask a little bit about there's sort of a kind of 3 or 4 eras, if you will, in the Spirit Rider program. Maybe a sort of artificial break, but when Eddie Finley started the program for the first 3 or 4 years, and then Dr. Tofflet took over and had it for about 10 years or so, and then you had it for 4 or 5, and then it's kind of Ty and Jennifer since the about 2004 or 5?
4 or 5, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, sir.
Could you talk about what you know about the transition from Eddie Finley to Dr. Tofflet, whom you worked with?
Mm-hmm. Well, from what I understand, you know, Eddie was he was the supervisor of the rodeo club at that time, and he was really kind of managing it out of the rodeo club. He was using, you know, one of the students in the club that was on the rodeo team, and like I said, for example, you know, the first rider was actually using his own horse. It wasn't a school-owned horse, and then when Eddie retired and Dr. Topliff took over that program, Dr. Topliff was the head of the horse program in animal science.
And would that have been around 1985?
It would have been right around 85. I believe 85 was that first year that original horse was used, which Dr. Topliff acquired from here in Oklahoma. And again, he could tell you who the person was. He found that horse.
And the name of the horse again was?
His registered name is Stars Par Money.
Stars Par.
P-A-R-R. P-A-R-R. Money.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Stars Par Money.
Right. And then when he got that horse, and then, you know, they had the naming contest here at OSU to come up with the name Bullet, and then that's just what's stuck thereafter. But yeah, then when Dr. Topliff took over, they started using one horse that the school owned, and then he started, you know, formalizing the tryouts, you know, having more of an open tryout format to select a rider, and then also, you know, having 2 or 3 kids serve on the ground crew. Whereas I believe when Eddie was doing it, it was just one rider on probably their own horse. Don't know that they had an official attire. Actually, when he started, he may have. I mean, obviously it was going to be, you know, very traditional cowboy attire, and which we have stuck with all along. And like I said, with some variations.
Okay. Thank you. I appreciate the background. Steve, let me ask you, in your opinion, how does Spirit Rider represent the history and the heritage of Oklahoma State University and the state of Oklahoma?
Well, you know, besides the obvious association with, you know, with the OSU Cowboys and the traditions that we have here, I think it's something that, you know, a cowboy on a horse is something that Oklahoma just simply identifies with. And I think it helps remind us and remind these kids of what OSU is. I mean, it was built as an ag-based school. It's still an agriculture-based school. this state, you know, very strong in the ag industries. So I think it helps us, you know, keep our identity and remind us of, you know, what our roots are here.
Someone might ask, you know, since we have Pistol Pete, why do we need Spirit Rider? How would you answer that?
Yeah, well, like I mentioned before, you know, technically the Bullet and the Spirit Rider are not the official mascot of OSU, but I think it just helps add to the Total Spirit program. You know, just like with the cheerleaders and the band and the palms, but it's something that I think appeals maybe to a lot of different people, especially the kids. You know, where they may not really much notice or care that there's, you know, a cheerleader out there or whatever, but you see a horse running on a field, you don't just get to see that everywhere. I think a lot of that other stuff, they just kind of maybe become immune to a little bit because they're so used to seeing it, and everybody has a band, everybody has cheerleaders, everybody has a pom squad, everybody has a flag corps, and so it's just, you know, it's just something you see all the time. See a black horse running out there on the field after a touchdown, you just don't see that very often. And so it brings I think a unique aspect to the Spirit deal, and it just, like I said, it's there to help, you know, be a part of and support the other Spirit programs and support, you know, help OSU.
Kind of lifts up the cowboy tradition, the Western tradition, in our history here at the university and in the state and this part of the country.
Right. Right.
How, in your opinion, Stephen, how are the roles of Spirit Rider and Pistol Pete similar? How are they different? Start off with similar.
Well, they don't let us carry a gun.
that's the disinroad.
That's the only non-cowboy traditional thing that they don't allow us to do is shoot a gun off the horse.
don't have a rifle holster on your side.
Right, yeah, you know, the West would be wild then. That might bring a new, unique aspect to it if we were doing trick shooting off the Spirit horse. You know, I mean, they're similar in the sense that they're both obviously part of the Total Spirit program. You know, along with the band and the cheer and everybody. And they're both, you know, trying to maintain our tradition as being the Cowboys. And like I said, just, you know, with their traditions of Oklahoma and really how this school got started. And what it was built on. I mean, it was built up out of, you know, a very rural community and an agricultural based community. Well, we got so many kids in here now from inner cities that are so far removed from agriculture and from the farm and ranch way of life and I don't know that it, you know, helps maintain that or helps portray that, but I sure hope it does.
Well, you know, Frank Eaton, Pistol Pete, you know, the real Pistol Pete, Frank Eaton was a cowboy, and he still got that cowboy tradition. I guess it's there. He rode and
right.
Was a lawman and all that.
Was
stuff.
A lawman, carried the 6-gun, and so yeah, hopefully they don't take Pistol Pete's guns away from him.
Right.
You know, there's some traditions we don't want to lose, and you know, part of it is, you know, we are the Cowboys, and
so you kind of feel like that it just enhances that image of us as a Western motif of the cowboy and who are the OSU Cowboys.
Right. Exactly.
What do you think Spirit Rider and Bullet will endure as representatives of you know, of OSU Spirit and OSU athletics? Do you think it's here to stay?
Yeah. Yes, sir. Yeah. Like I said, that's you could take the rider away just as long as you have the horse there.
That's my question I asked. I said earlier, you know, about how does it feel to play second fiddle to the horse? Because the horse in this program is more important than the rider. I say more important and more popular, more recognizable by the
Sure.
fans.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's just become a pretty strong tradition.
Well, kind of a couple follow-up questions to our earlier conversation. When you stepped down in, you said around 2004, somewhere in that neighborhood.
4 or 5. I
Five.
can't remember.
You had worked with Ty and Jennifer Cunningham. Can you tell me a little bit about them and how the program then evolved? Because then you stepped down, and so at this point, you were actually the faculty advisor, I guess, to the program. So at this point, well, I guess that you still stay closely affiliated with it in the sense of connection. It's really the athletic department working with the Cunninghams now. Is that right?
Right.
Could you kind of explain that organization, how it works?
Yeah. Well, it's always been a program for the athletic department. And so, when I was in charge of it, and when Dr. Topliff was in charge of it, it was housed underneath animal science. But it was facilitated for and through the athletic department. It was never something that, we really did for the animal science department. Everything we did with that horse was strictly for athletics. And so really the only change is, and of course now you have 2 people in charge of it that have both been spirit riders. So, they know the program inside and out. So they're just working outside the university in the sense that, obviously Ty and Jennifer are not, on serving as a faculty advisor. They're serving as an outside advisor, just like the Palm Squad, has a person who's not, well, at least when I was doing it, they weren't, working for OSU. They were supervising the program from outside. So.
Who was your contact in the athletic department? Was it Dave Martin, is it who you worked with?
Right.
The associate athletic director?
Right.
And so you just communicate with Dave, and was that a good working relationship for you? And that work out well?
Yeah, and we had, during the football season, every Monday we had meetings about the game coming up and then about the game that just happened. And so there was a representative from each one of the spirit teams, from the band, the cheerleaders, the Palm Squad, the ROTC, Spirit Rider team, media, football operations. So all the heads of all those met every Monday morning, and we would go through, what was good and bad about the last game, what we need to change, and then, okay, what do we need to do for this next game coming up? So everything was pretty structured as far as what we did. I mean, everybody knew their job and everybody knew what was going to happen when. It's just when you got down on the field, everybody that wasn't at that meeting who's doing their own thing, then all of a sudden we're all trying to have to work around all of that. And then things, a lot of things change kind of at the last minute. Oh, by the way, we're going to do this at such and such time. We're going to be coming down the tunnel with 20,000 balloons.
And his wife are going to be walking
between the first and second quarter. Okay, that's good to know. But we got to get that horse out of there and out of the way, because here come all these they're carrying bags of balloons that they're going to release for some, deal that they're announcing. Yeah. So, we tried to structure everything as much as we could. I mean, to where everybody knew kind of what everybody else was doing, and because our deal, there was a certain element of danger there associated with having that horse down there and running him on the field, and mostly it was safety for everybody around it. So yeah, we were all kind of on the same page within athletics, and then when we got on the field, we just did our best to try and control all that other stuff that just happens during the course of the game.
So Ty and Jennifer now have a contractual relationship with the athletic department. They actually feed, maintain Bullet at the Stone, I think the name of the ranch, Stone Ridge or something like that ranch. Anyway.
Yeah.
But so they keep Bullet there year round and work with the program.
Right, and they still do the the same selection process with the students,
Are
and
you
then they come over on Fridays, and then the students meet, and then I think they have the students that's on the horse. I think is probably going over there and riding the horse, a certain amount of time during the week
before the season, get them ready?
for the season, and then once the horse is up, of course, horse using now has been through it 2-3 years now, maybe more. So just a matter of getting the kid in sync with the horse, and then once you've gone through a game or two, it all kind of starts clicking.
Do they? I guess they have a trailer that they transport back and forth, and I think is there a trailer company that provided the trailer that they use?
Well, if they're still using the same trailer we had, there was an original trailer, and I'm not sure how that evolved. That happened back there kind of in the mid-'80s with Dr. Topliff. There was a black Turnbow trailer that was specially painted, and then that trailer was sold by the athletic department, and actually one of the alumni bought it and to have. And then the athletic department did purchase a new a black trailer, which they had custom painted with OSU, Spirit Rider Bullet. I don't remember which brand. I think it was a Sundowner, I believe. So the athletic department is the one that did provide the new trailer, which I believe is the one that Ty and Jennifer are using now.
Are you still involved in the selection process in any way?
No, Ty and Jennifer handle that.
Do they consult with you occasionally, or are you still kind of close to the program in any way?
Well, we will, several of our kids that are in my department, will be applying for that. And then kids will come to me and say, okay, what do I need to do to apply for Spirit Rider? And then I'll put them in touch with Ty and Jennifer. And then if they have questions about a specific kid that's, for example, in Bizzie and mine, then I'll provide feedback on an individual basis.
Tim, did you enjoy your time with the Spirit Rider program? Was it a special time for you?
Yeah. I mean, it just got, for me, prior to having kids and having this full-time job, I had, it was a little easier to be gone all day on every home game Saturday and stuff. But as I started, getting more things on my plate, I just couldn't afford the amount of time that it took to manage the program year-round, manage the horse year-round. I also coached the horse judging team, and so I was trying to manage that schedule on the top of the same schedule as the Spirit program, which those two, for me, directly conflicted a lot of times. And so trying to figure out how to do a horse judging workout on the same day as a football game, or be gone to a contest, out of state at the same time we're having to play OU here. And there were times I was at a judging contest and I would fly back early to go to the game, because it was, going to be a big game, and there was going to be a lot of pressure, and there's going to be a lot of people, and, just turning the kids loose down there was not an option. So as I started needing to, work in some other areas and having more things on my plate, that's when I went to Dave and said, got to do something different. And so he contacted Ty and Jennifer.
Did you recommend to Dave that he contact Ty and Jennifer?
No, not them specifically. He did. Ty did call me in later and said that they had been approached, and about doing that, and then as far as the details of what actually worked out, I do know that they're working on a contractual basis with athletics. So.
Some favorite memories of your time with the Spirit Rider program stand out in your mind?
Just probably the funny things that people would ask us to do sometimes. Like, for example, when Coach Simmons was here, he was the one that started having the inflatable tunnel. I don't know if you remember that, when they would come off the concrete tunnel and they had an inflatable tunnel, and then on the end of that had this big inflatable helmet. And then they had smoke coming out of it, and they would run the team down through there. Well, they wanted us to put Bullet inside the helmet with the smoke, and then the inflatable mask was broke in the center. So they had two kids standing here, and as that team would start running down through there, then they would open this mask up and the team would run down through there. So we finally agreed to run in front of the team, but stand him outside here. But they wanted us to stand him inside that inflatable helmet, full of smoke, and then as the team is running full speed through there at the horse, then run out, in front of the team.
Recipe for disaster, right?
And that was, and then I had to explain to them how, and they didn't understand why that was not a good idea, or why that wouldn't work. So it was a lot of things. And then like the parachute, when the parachuter came down over Ty, and then a friend of mine, we were discussing just the other day, one of the coolest things and one of the scariest things that we've ever done. And this was a deal that, I remember after we did it, Dr. Topliff called a friend of mine who was helping with the program. He said, "You guys are crazy. What were y'all thinking when you did this?" And there was one game where on senior day, they bring the seniors out to the center of the field, introduce them with their families. Well, we had a young man, Trent Alexander, who was in our department, outstanding horseman, which a lot of people probably didn't know. He rode calf roping horses and he rode race horses. And this kid, he is an excellent rider. And actually, he probably could have been on the rodeo team. He was that good. And so senior day, he was working for us out at the farm a little bit, and he was familiar with the program. And he asked us if he could ride Bullet out there for senior day. And we were like, well, I don't know, Trent. Never put somebody on the horse. Never put a football player. This was a starting. He was a starting football player. And
so he had his uniform on then.
So he came down that tunnel and had his uniform on, and his dad had his black hat with him. And at the last minute, this friend of mine he was another faculty advisor helping with the program, and he told Trent, "Put your hat on, get on the horse." And it all happened just like that. So, and somehow Trent was the last one to get introduced. So he puts his cowboy hat on, rides that horse to center of field. That horse gets to center of field, he stops him, and this horse is used to just go. When he gets the field, he just runs and comes back. You don't ever try to stop him on the field. He doesn't. That's not his normal deal. It's to run out there and run back, or run down the field and trot back. So to run to the middle field and stop was a totally new deal. Well, this horse runs out there and stops, and he's trying to go, and Trent's, stopping him, and the horse comes up, rears up. And Trent just kind of does this, just rears up, and Trent just sits right in the middle of him, just kind of tips his hat to the fans. And the stadium just goes crazy. They thought we had planned this whole deal, and me and my friend were looking at each other like, that's the scariest thing we've ever seen.
Never again, no.
I was like, whoa, well, we dodged a bullet there. But and then for the next few years, you see this everywhere you look, on the posters and everywhere. There's this picture of Trent Alexander on this horse with his black hat, with this black horse rearing up like, hi-ho silver, just like it's a movie. And, everybody thought, well, they just planned it that way. But I'll tell you what, had that kid not been a super good hand on a horse, and I'm sure the coaches were just about to die, because here's their starting, player up there on that horse. So, but it looked pretty cool in his uniform and his black hat. That's probably my favorite, or one of my most memorable moments. Was watching him do that.
Stephen, how do you see the program evolving in the future and changing? Any thoughts on that?
Well, I mean, the biggest change, I would guess, is just, it's just been, working out a little bit different system with the new stadium. It kind of changed the dynamics. It actually probably has made it a little safer, just as far as being able to protect the horse and kind of keep him out of the area of heavy traffic and people that just don't need to be around him.
They built a special
stall
for him.
for him, and because in the old stadium, like in halftime, where we would stand him up there next to that old chain link fence, and we wanted him up there so that the kids can come up and get their picture and stuff. But then there was also just a lot of general traffic and people throwing footballs and stuff and spooking the horse. And then where we stood him was directly underneath that old jumbotron. Well, then they got to, like at certain times, shooting fireworks off of it, and this stuff's raining down on top of the horse and scaring him. And then at the same time, you've got this little kid that's trying to take their picture with him, and then something happens over here that you can't control, and it spooks him, and so it puts the public in kind of a dangerous situation. So, I think the system they have now is much more conducive to having a horse in a stadium, which again is not that normal.
Well, Stephen, what have we not covered? I mean, there's got to be some things that I forgot to ask you that you might want to share with us about the program, about you're involved with, anything that we missed or haven't covered? Or anything you'd like to say about it?
Well, go back to your last question. I don't know that I really see it evolving any differently than where it is right now. I mean, I don't think that we want to change it to mimic some other program or change it from what it's been for the last 25 years or so. I mean, I think it's there, and it's important that we maintain the tradition that it started. And if they can continue that tradition, from now on, that's going to be a testament to the desire of the people for wanting that type of program.
Anything else we left out?
I can't think of anything. So I appreciate the time.
Well, thank you for taking your time to do it.
Yeah, no problem.